Hey everyone, ready for a deep dive into managing anxiety with PCOS? It can be a lot, right? Like, where do you even begin?
It really can. It's a common struggle, and it can get complicated. I mean, there's a lot going on.
Exactly. So today, we're going to try to untangle some of that. We've got a ton of great sources to dig into. Research on mindfulness, exercise, diet stuff.
Oh, yeah. And even some hormonal balancing techniques.
Right. A whole bunch of stuff that can maybe, hopefully help you find a little peace of mind.
You know, what's really interesting to me is how much of this stuff is about that mind-body connection
Yeah.
and how strong that seems to be for folks with PCOS.
I've always wondered, like, how much does my mental state actually mess with my PCOS symptoms?
Oh, it goes both ways.
Yeah.
For sure. There's research that actually shows stress can really make those symptoms worse. Like kick everything into overdrive.
Huh?
And
Yeah.
then, when your symptoms are flaring, you get more anxious.
Total vicious cycle.
It is.
Yeah.
But there's good news, too. Mindfulness-based stress reduction, or MBSR.
MBSR. Okay.
Yeah, MBSR. That's showing some real promise.
Okay, cool. But like for someone like me who's always on the go,
Yeah.
is that even like realistic?
Well, from what I was reading, even 2 to 5 minutes of meditation a day can make a difference.
Really?
Yeah, like a noticeable difference in how much you worry. And hey, 2 minutes. We can all find 2 minutes.
True. That actually feels a lot less intimidating than I thought.
Right.
Okay, so that's like retraining our brains a little bit. But what about the physical stuff? Exercise helps with anxiety too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, big time. Physical activity is like a natural chill pill,
Mm-hmm.
There's studies showing that just 30 minutes of moderate exercise 3 times a week,
Okay.
that can significantly reduce anxiety symptoms,
Hmm.
especially for women with PCOS.
That's amazing.
Plus, it helps with managing the PCOS symptoms themselves
Right.
directly.
Right. Okay, so we're talking brisk walking, maybe dancing, swimming.
Whatever gets you moving,
Right.
whatever you enjoy.
Love that.
And, for people with PCOS, yoga and Pilates can be extra helpful. And not just for fitness,
Mm-hmm.
but for like hormonal balance and stress reduction too.
So it's that mind-body connection again. I'm sensing a theme here. But honestly, even with exercise and mindfulness and all that good stuff, life with PCOS can still be a lot. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, totally. Just everyday stressors. They pile up for anyone.
Yeah.
But when you're also trying to manage PCOS, it can feel like even more intense.
Yeah, definitely. So what else can we do to like tame the stress monster?
Well, aside from the, 2 to 5 minutes of meditation.
All right. Aside from that.
Well, our sources had some great ideas about how to like weave stress management into your day.
Mm.
Little things really, like deep breathing exercises, taking a quick stretch break,
Oh, yeah.
or even just like jotting down your thoughts in a journal.
I can do that. I actually keep a journal by my bed, so go me. What about those days when you need something a little extra, though?
Well, there's this whole concept of adaptogenic herbs,
Hmm.
things like ashwagandha.
Ashwagandha. I've heard of that.
Have you? What do you know about it?
Honestly, not a ton.
So it's this herb, right?
Yeah.
And it's been used in traditional Indian medicine forever, like centuries.
Wow.
And there's some research that suggests it might help balance cortisol levels,
Cortisol. Isn't that the stress hormone?
the main one, your body's main stress hormone.
Oh, okay.
Now, we need more research for sure, but it's definitely worth chatting with your doctor about it, especially if you're looking for more natural ways to manage anxiety.
Interesting. I'm always up for exploring natural options. Speaking of natural ways to feel better, we got to talk about sleep.
Oh, yes. So important.
I know, I'm a completely different person when I don't get enough.
You and me both. Sleep is like non-negotiable,
Yeah.
especially for managing both PCOS and anxiety.
Yeah.
You really want to try to get those 7 to 8 hours a night.
Whenever possible. Easier said than done sometimes. What are some simple things people can actually do to, like, improve their sleep hygiene?
Routines.
Yeah.
Little routines can make a big difference. A relaxing bedtime routine, like maybe an hour before bed, no screens.
Yeah, right.
Think about things like a warm bath, reading a good book, maybe some of those deep breathing exercises we talked about.
Ooh, that actually sounds really nice.
Right.
Okay, so we've got moving our bodies, quieting our minds, taming the stress monster, and prioritizing sleep. Now, what about what we're actually putting into our bodies? Food's got to be a big piece of this puzzle too, right?
It is, big time.
Yeah.
A balanced PCOS-friendly diet is like the foundation. It sets the stage for better well-being overall.
Okay, I get that. But what does PCOS-friendly actually mean when we're talking about managing anxiety?
It's about picking foods that help you balance your blood sugar and reduce inflammation.
Gotcha.
Because both of those things, They can have a huge impact on how you feel, on your mood, your anxiety levels, everything.
Hmm, that makes sense. Are there any, like, specific nutrients that stand out, like things that are particularly good for managing anxiety with PCOS?
Well, from what I saw in the research, omega-3 fatty acids and vitamin D kept coming up. They're supposed to have some mood-boosting properties.
Interesting. I'll have to look into that more.
Yeah, but like always, talk to your doctor before you start taking any new supplements.
Right, right. Good point.
Personalized advice is always best.
Definitely.
Okay, we've talked about a ton of lifestyle stuff today, but sometimes, even when you're doing all the right things, you still need a little extra support.
Yeah.
And it can be tough to admit that.
Yeah.
So I just want to say, like, it's okay to ask for help. It's actually a sign of strength, not weakness.
Oh, 100%. Recognizing you need support and then actually reaching out. That's huge.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And it means you don't have to go through this alone.
Yeah.
Are there specific types of therapy that are good for managing anxiety, especially when it's related to PCOS?
Yeah, for sure. Cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT?
TDB.
TBT, yeah.
Yeah.
That one seems to be super effective. It's about, like, identifying those negative thought patterns and behaviors, the stuff that feeds your anxiety.
And then you work on, like, shifting those.
So you're basically retraining your brain to think differently.
Pretty much. And for people with PCOS, CBT can be extra beneficial because it can help with all the anxieties around body image, self-esteem, all the challenges that come with this condition.
Wow. That sounds really valuable.
It is.
What about, like, the power of community? I feel like connecting with people who really get it, who understand the PCOS struggle, that could be a game changer.
Oh, it totally can be.
Yeah.
Support groups are so good for that. They can really help reduce those feelings of isolation and, like, help you feel like you belong.
Yeah, that sense of shared experience, that I'm not alone in this feeling.
Right.
I wanted to touch on hormones for a minute because, I mean, we all know those fluctuations can be a major trigger for anxiety, especially with PCOS.
Oh, for sure. Hormones are at the heart of it all. Those imbalances can really contribute to the anxiety you're feeling and those, frustrating PCOS symptoms.
Ugh, yes. It can feel like you're on a hormonal roller coaster sometimes. So what can we do about that?
The key is working with your doctor to try to address those imbalances. They might recommend birth control, maybe some other medications, depending on what's going on.
So it's about finding a personalized approach.
Exactly. There's no one-size-fits-all solution here. Your doctor can help you figure out what's right for you. We've talked about a lot of different strategies so far.
We have.
But let's shift gears for a minute and talk about relaxation.
Ooh, yes. I like where this is going.
Relaxation isn't just like lounging on the couch, right? It's about actively engaging in things that calm your mind and your body.
Love that. Like having a whole toolkit of relaxation techniques. Deep breathing is great, but are there other techniques you'd recommend?
For sure. Progressive muscle relaxation is a really good one.
Progressive muscle, what is that exactly?
So you basically tense up and then release different muscle groups in your body.
Oh, right. It's amazing how much tension we hold without even realizing it.
I know. And this technique really helps you become aware of it. And then release it so you feel super relaxed.
Nice. I've also heard it can be good for sleep.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we've got deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation. What else?
Guided imagery.
Ooh, guided imagery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's where you basically use your imagination to create this peaceful scene in your mind.
Oh, okay. I love that. Like a little mental vacation.
Exactly. It can be really effective for reducing anxiety and helping you relax.
I am all about those mental escape hatches.
Me too.
Okay, we have covered so much today. But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I wanted to touch on something that often gets overlooked: mindful consumption.
Some caffeine and alcohol.
The usual suspects.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to cut them out completely, but being aware of how much you're taking in
Right.
and understanding how they affect you personally, that can make a world of difference.
Huge difference. Some people are super sensitive to caffeine and alcohol. Even small amounts can trigger anxiety, maybe make their PCOS symptoms worse.
Right.
But other people can enjoy them in moderation without any problems. It's all about figuring out what works for you.
So it's about awareness and making conscious choices.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Choices that support your well-being.
And remembering that taking care of yourself is not selfish.
It's essential. It's an act of self-preservation.
Love that. We'll dive deeper into self-care and some other really cool stuff in the next part of our deep dive, so stay tuned.
Welcome back. Glad to be continuing this conversation about anxiety and PCOS. There's just So much to unpack.
There really is. And before we jump into anything new, I want to circle back to what you said right before the break about self-care being like an act of self-preservation.
Oh, yeah.
It's so easy to just put our own needs on the back burner, especially when you're juggling all the demands of life, plus PCOS on top of it.
Totally. And it's funny because it's when things feel the most overwhelming that self-care becomes even more important.
Right.
It's not about, like, being indulgent. It's about making a conscious choice to do things that nourish you, like mind, body, and soul.
Okay, I love that. So we're talking more than just bubble baths and face masks here.
Oh, way more. It could be spending time in nature, reading a good book, listening to music you love, maybe pursuing a creative hobby.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that brings you joy helps you recharge.
Filling your cup so you can be the best version of yourself.
Exactly. And part of that is, like, cultivating self-compassion.
Oh, yeah. Being kind to yourself.
Yeah. Treating yourself with the same kindness you would offer a close friend.
It's so much easier to be our own worst critics, though, especially when we're struggling.
True. But we're all human. We all mess up sometimes.
Yeah.
We're all worthy of love and acceptance, especially from ourselves.
I needed to hear that today. Thank you. Okay, so we've got mindful consumption, self-care, self-compassion, all super important. But I want to go back to hormones for a sec, because it's not just in our heads, right? Like, there's a real physiological thing happening with this anxiety PCOS connection.
Oh, absolutely. Hormonal imbalances, they can really impact your mood and all those frustrating PCOS symptoms.
Yeah.
And, the research we looked at,
Yeah.
it's specifically pointed to insulin and androgens as being big players in this whole interplay.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's not just about managing the emotional stuff, it's about trying to address those underlying hormonal things too.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why finding a doctor who really gets PCOS is so important. Someone who can help you navigate all the complexities.
They might recommend birth control pills, maybe other meds. Depends on your situation, I guess.
Totally. And it's important to remember, finding the right treatment plan, it can take time.
Yeah.
It's a process, and it might involve some trial and error. You really need to work closely with your doctor to find what works best for you.
Which means advocating for yourself.
Yes. Ask questions, talk about your concerns, don't be afraid to speak up. You have the right to be an informed patient.
Absolutely. We've been talking about working with doctors, but I also want to talk about therapy, like seeking professional help, which again, it's a sign of strength, not weakness.
Couldn't agree more. It takes a lot of courage to reach out for help.
It does. We talked about CBT a little bit earlier. Can you explain a little more about how that can be helpful, specifically for managing anxiety related to PCOS?
Sure. So with CBT, you're basically learning how to identify and change those negative thought patterns and behaviors that are contributing to your anxiety.
Okay.
It's about challenging those thoughts, the unhelpful ones, and then trying to replace them with more positive, more realistic ones.
So it's like retraining your brain.
Yeah, kind of. And for folks with PCOS, it can be especially helpful for dealing with things like body image, self-esteem, the anxieties that often come with this condition.
Wow, that sounds really powerful.
It can be. The important thing is to find a therapist you feel comfortable with, someone who specializes in PCOS.
Right. Someone who gets it.
Exactly.
Speaking of support, what about connecting with other people who are going through similar experiences?
Oh, that's so important. Whether it's your friends, family, a therapist, or even a support group specifically for people with PCOS. Having a strong support system can make a world of difference.
It's that I'm not alone feeling.
Exactly. Sharing your experiences, feeling understood, and having that encouragement, it can be really validating and empowering.
It can. Okay, so we've talked about therapy and support systems, but what about those everyday things we can do to manage anxiety?
Well, there are tons of simple but powerful techniques you can try.
I'm all ears.
Okay, so one of the easiest and most effective things you can do is focus on your breath. Deep breathing exercises are amazing for calming your nervous system.
Oh yeah, deep breathing. I've heard about that. But is it really as simple as it sounds?
It can be. There are a lot of different techniques, but a basic one is to just inhale deeply through your nose, hold it for a few seconds, and then exhale slowly through your mouth.
I'm already feeling more relaxed.
Right.
Yeah.
It's incredible how much of a difference it can make, both for your mind and your body.
And it's something you can literally do anywhere, anytime.
Exactly. No special equipment needed.
I like it. Okay, what about other relaxation techniques? Any favorites?
Progressive muscle relaxation is another good one. Remember we talked about that earlier?
Oh yeah, where you tense and release different muscle groups.
Yep. It helps you become aware of all that tension you're carrying around and then let it go.
It's crazy how much tension we hold without realizing it.
I know, right?
And I remember you saying it can help with sleep, too.
It can. And speaking of sleep, having a relaxing bedtime routine is so helpful.
We talked about that earlier.
It basically signals to your body that it's time to wind down.
Right, right. What are some things people can do to create that kind of calming bedtime ritual?
Think about things like a warm bath, reading a book, listening to calming music. Maybe even try some of those relaxation techniques we were just talking about.
Yeah.
And of course, try to limit your screen time for at least an hour before bed.
I know, I know. It's so tempting to scroll through your phone at night, but that blue light is a killer.
It really is.
Hmm.
But trust me, those few extra minutes of scrolling aren't worth sacrificing a good night's sleep.
Very true. Okay, so we've covered deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, establishing a relaxing bedtime routine. Anything else?
Oh, guided imagery. It's where you use your imagination to create a peaceful, calming scene in your mind.
Ooh, yeah, like a little mental vacation.
Exactly. It can be super effective for anxiety.
I love it. Okay, this is all so helpful. But what about when those really intense anxiety feelings hit, like out of nowhere? Any tips for navigating those moments?
Totally. One technique that can be super grounding is to just focus on your senses.
What do you mean?
Like bring yourself back to the present moment by tuning into what you can see, hear, smell, taste, and touch.
So if I'm feeling really overwhelmed, I could like focus on the feeling of my feet on the floor, or the sound of my breath,
Mhm.
or I don't know, the sight of a flower or something.
Exactly. It's about shifting your attention away from those spiraling thoughts, like anchoring yourself in the physical world.
So it's like hitting the pause button on that anxiety spiral.
Yes, exactly that. It can really help calm your nervous system down.
Wow, this is all so insightful. I feel like I have a whole new set of tools to deal with my anxiety now.
That's awesome. And remember, it's about progress, not perfection. Some days will be easier than others, and that's totally okay.
Right.
Be kind to yourself and keep practicing these techniques.
Such an important reminder. We're all on this journey together, learning and growing along the way.
And we don't have to do it alone. Remember all those support systems we talked about. They're there for you.
They are. Okay, so to recap, we've talked about self-care, all those relaxation techniques, the power of therapy and having a good support system.
Hmm.
And we talked about the importance of addressing those underlying hormonal imbalances too.
It's all about creating a holistic approach,
Yeah.
taking care of your mind, your body, your spirit.
This has been so empowering. I honestly feel so much more equipped to handle all the complexities of anxiety and PCOS.
Fantastic.
But before we wrap things up completely, I'm really curious to hear more about that link between gut health and PCOS that you mentioned earlier.
Oh, yeah. That's a fascinating area of research. We'll dive into that in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay, so we're back for the last part of our deep dive, and I am so ready to hear more about this gut health connection. It's just not something I've ever really thought about before. In relation to PCOS, or anxiety, I mean.
It is pretty new in terms of the research, but it's really fascinating stuff. So basically, the gut microbiome, all those trillions of bacteria living in our digestive system.
Yeah.
Well, they play a much bigger role in our overall health than we ever realized. And that includes our mental health.
Okay, but how does what's going on in our gut actually impact anxiety? Like, it seems pretty far from our stomachs to our brains, right?
You would think so.
Yeah.
But some of the studies suggest that when you have imbalances in the gut bacteria, it's called dysbiosis.
Dysbiosis, got it.
Right. So when you have that dysbiosis, it can actually lead to more inflammation throughout the body, including the brain. And we know that inflammation is a factor in anxiety and other mood disorders.
So it's like those gut bacteria are sending signals to the brain. And if the signals are messed up, our mood can be affected, almost like a communication breakdown.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And for people with PCOS, this connection might be even more important because,
Yeah.
well, they often have hormonal imbalances that can already affect gut health.
Wow, that's crazy. So what can we do to support a healthy gut microbiome? Is that something we can actually control?
Oh, yeah. One of the best things you can do is just focus on eating a diverse and balanced diet.
Okay.
And when I say balanced, I'm talking fiber-rich foods like fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes.
Fiber, the gut superhero.
It really is. Because fiber, it acts as food for all the good bacteria in your gut, helps them thrive and kind of crowd out the bad guys.
So we're feeding the good gut bugs. What about things we should avoid?
Processed foods, sugary drinks, unhealthy fats, those can all throw off the balance of bacteria in your gut.
Makes sense. Feed the good, starve the bad. But it's not just about what we eat, right? Stress probably plays a role in gut health too.
It does, big time.
Yeah.
When you're stressed, your body releases hormones like cortisol, and cortisol can have a negative impact on the gut microbiome.
So all that stuff we talked about earlier, the deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, even the guided imagery, those aren't just good for our minds, they could be good for our guts too.
Exactly. It really is all connected. Managing stress in healthy ways is such a win-win
Right.
for both your mental and physical health. Exercise, spending time in nature, doing hobbies you enjoy, those can all make a difference.
It's like this ripple effect, huh? Taking care of our mental health can actually have a positive impact on our gut, which then supports our overall well-being.
Exactly. And if you're really concerned about your gut health, it's always a good idea to talk to your doctor. They can help you figure out if there are any underlying issues and maybe recommend some dietary changes or supplements just to give your gut microbiome a little extra support.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Mm.
Personalized guidance is always the best. Wow, this whole conversation has been such an eye-opener. I feel like I have so many more tools to manage my anxiety now, and I just understand better how everything is connected.
That's great to hear. And remember, managing anxiety with PCOS, it's a journey, not a destination.
Mm-hmm.
There will be good days and bad days, but you've got this. Just keep incorporating these strategies and find a good support system, and you can absolutely create a life that feels good, a life that feels fulfilling and joyful.
That's a really beautiful message, and it's so reassuring. It's about finding that strength within yourself.
It is, and remember, you are not alone. There's so many people out there who understand what you're going through, and they're there to support you every step of the way.
This has been an amazing deep dive. Seriously, I've learned so much. I feel so much more empowered to really take charge of my well-being. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and insights with us.
My pleasure. And hey, believe in yourself, okay? You're capable of amazing things.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep taking care of yourselves.